is Chloe, and today I'm going to be doing a review of Noughts and Crosses. It's a new BBC show based on Malorie Blackman's original book, Noughts and Crosses. This is the 2020 adaptation. The premise of the show follows the present-day world in Britain as if Africans colonized Europe as opposed to Europeans colonizing Africa. Slavery has been abolished, but segregation is still intact. Young adults from opposing communities cross paths, and of course, trouble ensues. So, as you're watching this, don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. Let me know what you think about Noughts and Crosses. Did you enjoy watching it? I haven't seen that much, articles or tweets or just reception around the program in general. The most feedback I saw was the first episode that aired a couple of weeks ago, but all of the 6 episodes of the series were released online on BBC iPlayer. That's where you can watch it. So just to let you know, this review will not contain spoilers. There will be minor details which refer to key aspects in terms of the structure, the plot, music, and overall my thoughts, which may impact whether or not you are interested in watching the show or not. Malorie Blackman's original book, it's such a huge contribution. It is, culturally significant for a lot of Black British people, but I did have some issues with the BBC adaptation. And I have to admit that I have not read the original book, but from what I have researched, there are certain bits which they have taken out of the adaptation which take place in the book. The main character, Sefi, so she's from the rich African family. She is the daughter of her father, who is within the political elite. He has an influence, and she is played by Masali Badwaza. We then have Callum McGregor, and he is from a poor white underclass family, and we see the dynamic of how they experience racism. I know, for me, it sounds weird even saying it, but that's basically how the world is navigated, right? Or how it functions. And he's played by Jack Rowan. Those are the main characters. I feel like overall the performance was strong. And one thing I will say about this program, that it was really nice. It was really positive in terms of the representation of Black people. When do we ever see dark-skinned Black women with natural hair, especially in British media? That's more or less unheard of. And I think with the actress who plays Sefi, so Masali Badwaza, I felt like she was so stunning, her skin and the costumes, whoever did the costume designs, everything was just so, you could see the heart in it. There was something so beautiful about it. And I liked her acting, I liked her performance, I liked the costumes. I feel like she really pulled off the character well. So overall, in terms of the structure, I wanted to talk about the structure a little bit. It aired in March. It has 6 episodes, and initially I found episode 1 really boring. I was struggling, and I don't know, the pacing of episode 1 just felt off. And initially I felt like the casting of Callum McGregor could have been better. It just felt very Disney, the actor. But I must say, to give the benefit of the doubt, I am not the target demographic. This is a book targeted at teenagers. So obviously the TV adaptation is targeted at, for families in general, but the story is about teenagers. It's something that, is meant for a teenage audience. So that casting obviously plays a role. So but I just felt like initially I found it a bit cringy, just certain bits. But I think that as I watched the whole series, his acting actually grew on me, and I think he wasn't actually bad. He was actually good. So I feel like he carried the character well. The more difficult bits of Callum's life that he started to experience, the more that I was sold on his performance. In terms of commentary, so this is where my issues lie. So from episode 1, this is where I was struggling, right? With the concept of having to portray the world as opposite in order to express the difficulties for Black people initially anyway. Personally, that's not a method I would use, but I also understand that everyone has a different perspective on how change can be brought about, and also there's different ways that we can convey messages, right? So that clashes with my politics. But yeah, but I just felt like things in the BBC adaptation, I can only concentrate on that because I haven't read the book. Okay, it trivialized the black experience in a way that it was like being black is being flung by the police. Being black is, it just felt like, okay, there's more to blackness than that. It kind of links to this wider context around representation and the fact that it's always about violence. When we're thinking about blackness, it's always violence, it's always, our oppression. And sometimes we just want to see stories which have characters that just happen to be black. Like, and it's almost, no, it's not almost, it's very traumatizing to see these violent stories, to see people just I don't know, just something about that scene with the police really bothered me. Like, I think that's one of the main things I wanted to convey. And like, yes, we do experience violence. Yes, we do experience violence. But there was just something that just felt like it just felt too, it felt soulless.
As I was editing this YouTube video, I felt that another issue I have with Noughts and Crosses is the use of an interracial relationship. This kind of reminds me of the mixedness conversation, and I think that the representation of an interracial relationship in this context contributes to misunderstandings to white people and oppressed communities that interracial relationships are a sign of progress or are revolutionary or radical in some way. Like, this may have not been Mallory's intention, but due to the precedent of the representation of these types of relationships and this conversation and how we use it as a tool to discuss racial inequality, you can't help but wonder what or how audiences are processing these images, I guess you could say, right?
So, for example, there were so many references to like microaggressions, or what I like to just call plain racism, that or anti-black racism that we experience. So, for example, people purposely mispronouncing our names, right? Um, Having to change our names to appease white people, right? To making ourselves more palatable, or assimilation. Natural hair can be seen as unkempt, particularly if you have thicker, 40 hair, which is seen as more African, right? Um, I got all of that and how they were trying to portray it in the opposite, right? In the opposite format. So in terms of these white people having to put on braids, and I think I just could not go along with the
It
simulation.
just made me feel, do we really have to do all of this for you to understand? And when it comes to the whole braids and then them wearing African costume, well, African traditional dress, need I say any more? Like, we know why this is just quite cringy. We know. Because culturally, we have the Kylie Jenners, we have the, like, this kind of representation just doesn't work for me personally. But obviously, in that world, it's the assimilation equivalent, supposedly.
At the end of the day, I found it hard to go along with the simulation. But then I thought, and I'm like, I thought for a moment, I'm like, this is not for me, is it? This program is not for me. And I think that's the conclusion I came to. There were aspects I enjoyed for it, but with my politics and with 24 years 24 years experience on this earth, I just, as a black woman, this show just was not for me. Okay? On a whole, I just think the timing of which the original book was released, I will put the year here. The book was released in this time, right? This was a different era to 2020 British society, right? So there's ways that we talk about race, there's conversations that we have, or how we feel about certain things. It's got to a level of which this kind of representation, particularly in terms of showing white men being radicalized, that is just uncomfortable. The white male violence. I can't I found it hard to go along with the simulation.
Also, keep in mind, this is the type of world, right? This idea of black supremacy that, white supremacists, Nazis fear will take place.
Like, why do we always have to do these grand things, or like, I don't know if I would call it a gesture, but to show, oh, hey guys, you're oppressing us, right? Like, I just, that whole conversation, debate, that very liberal approach to change, okay, that there may be certain situations where that does work, but I think for people, specifically black women who are exhausted, for our black siblings, our non-binary folk, our trans folk, our LGBT plus folk, they spend a lot of time having to explain, to justify, you could use the right pronouns. Is it that hard? You know what I mean? Like, we have to spend so much time having, hey, don't you think that what you're doing is not correct? Like, you're actually hurting me. That there's just something that I just can't vibe with when it comes to this BBC adaptation and this book. This is me talking from a 2020 present day Britain perspective, okay? So yeah, that is overall what I thought about Noughts and Crosses. I definitely would recommend that people watch it. Does it clash with my politics? Yes. I hope everyone is, healthy, trying to stay strong. If you don't feel strong right now, it's going to be a lot of ups and downs, and we are going to survive it. And you're not alone. Like, I would try to post that on my Instagram, like little positive stuff. But at the same time, I want to make it clear that you're not going to feel positive 24/7. It's how you handle those difficult moments. Don't shame yourself for feeling sad. There's nothing wrong with feeling sad. It's a human emotion.